welcome to another special Daleks Aren't Robots, if the first one ever goes out. I am Josh. I have just finished the latest season of Doctor Who, which at this point is either Series 14 or Series 1 because stupid naming conventions. And I had thoughts about it. And I have a friend here who had thoughts about it. Meet my friend, Sam.
Hi, I've been in this podcast for 50 years.
He was just sitting on top of it the whole time. Just hanging out there.
I was going to say, so the way this worked was, aside from the finale, I watched all the episodes with you after you had already watched the episodes. So you've watched them all of them twice, and I've watched them once.
Yes. So,
Okay.
all of you people out there, at the time I am recording this, Sam and I actually recorded something about the David Tennant specials, which I was hoping to edit and put out before the new season started, and then I didn't.
Things happen. Real life.
I'm bad at my job. Anyway, so if that ever goes out, you might hear it first, you might hear this one first, but basically we talked about our thoughts on the specials. Just a quick recap, depending on whatever's going on. Both of us liked Into the Wild Blue Yonder. I think we were kind of half on the other ones. You were half into The Giggle, and I was half into the Star Beasts, and the other one didn't like the other one. We kind of separated on the other two.
I'm going to say it's going to be very interesting because I feel like we're going to bring up the Giggle a bit when discussing the season, because it feels like, in a way, it was kind of the template for a lot of the stuff for the season.
Yeah, The Giggle definitely was like the setup for the main story this season. I'm also going to just state for the record that as this is a season review, we're not going to summarize each episode individually. Ain't no one got time for that.
I might give some quick thoughts on certain episodes, though.
I think I'm going to just state the episode, and if we have thoughts, we'll give them on them, and if not, we're going to just move on. So, you okay with going about this?
You want to give a general impression about the season first, or do we want to save that for the end?
Alright, let's give a general impression of the season. I'll start. I hated it. I did not like this season. It's not the worst season of Doctor Who. I'm honestly not sure off the top of my head. It would probably be season 7, in my opinion. I don't know. But this one was just so very shaky.
I'll say from what I've seen online, even the people who generally like this season agree this might be Davies' weakest.
Yeah.
Like, even the people who like Davies were like, oh, okay.
I mean, look, I am not a big Davies fan. I don't dislike Davies. I feel like I have given off the impression that I'm like a Davies hater, and I'm not. There's stuff I like, but I, going in, was really skeptical about him coming back because I am not the biggest fan of his run, and it was basically everything I was afraid his run would be, this was, in that it felt very much like Diet David Tennant.
I'm generally along the same lines as you. This was not great.
It was not.
There are parts I like, there are parts I love, but overall as a season, it didn't work. And I think part of that is the length of the season.
It's shorter than the others. This is true. Now, granted, Jodie's seasons were also shorter than the others, and I am a Jodie stan. I know, Sam, you have not seen Jodie.
I've also heard that Flux suffered a bit from being so condensed, though, to be fair.
It did. Flux, I think, definitely could have used some filler episodes in there to break it up.
Alright, so should we get started on the season proper, then?
So let's start with the Christmas special, actually. The Church on Ruby Road.
This one's fine. This was, not a bad first episode.
I mean, it's a standard Christmas special. It's a little too twee for its own good, but it's not awful.
I have a few things to say about this episode.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to get his name wrong a lot, so you're going to have to say the actor's name a lot.
So, just to clarify, because I think I get it wrong in our first video, according to an interview I saw with him, it is apparently pronounced Nshuri Gatwa.
It's Judy Gatwa. Okay.
If you want, you can just call him
This is
Gatwa.
Gatwa. Yeah, I'll say that because we call them Tennant and Smith and Capaldi. So yeah, I think I said this a lot while we watched this season. Gatwa's wasted on this season. He is way too good for it.
He's very good. Although, weirdly enough, the episodes that are bad for him, he's really there are times I don't know what he's going for.
We'll get to that because first let's get through Ruby Road. There's another thing I want to bring up about the season as someone who left around series 7 and came back for this.
Mm-hmm.
The special effects actually look really good generally for this season.
I think that, especially given that the special effects, particularly in Into the Wild Blue Yonder, were quite bad.
Yeah.
This was pretty good. Although, speaking personally, I think Jodie Whittaker was where the special effects really were taken up a notch. They look great there, and here they look roughly equivalent.
And again, this is me coming back after not seeing the Jodie era and seeing the up in quality. In my head, I'm like, oh, this must be that Disney money.
I mean, it's also possible it's the Disney money, although, given what other Disney Plus shows look like, I would not necessarily stake it on that.
But back to the church on Ruby Road, it's a generally pretty okay episode. There's these sky pirate goblins that are stealing babies, which is pretty funny. They have a dance sequence that I think was a song that was actually pretty funny.
Mm.
And the Goblin King looks, and then it has a weird tone problem for like the last 10 minutes.
Yeah, it jumps around a lot. It's one of these episodes where, and Davies does this a lot, where it feels like he, instead of really exploring one idea, he kind of takes a bunch of ideas he has and smushes them together.
We'll get into that later.
So it's suddenly like this story that was just a fun story about goblins now becomes about causality and what Ruby meant to the world, and it's odd.
Did we talk about Ruby now or hold off?
I think we'll hold off. We'll just say there is a mystery box around Ruby, and beyond that, I feel she's pretty bland.
She's very Rose archetype.
Except even Rose had more personality than this.
Ruby has good stuff going around her. I like the mystery box about her family aside. I like her adopted mom and grandma. I like that it is presenting an adopted family as a legit family, although there is the question about her birth parents, which is legitimate. And Ruby is shown to be a nice person. She's an accepting person. We see in the first episode that one of her friends is a trans woman.
Once again, Russell going, I don't hate trans people. Please don't hold Cassandra against me.
And I'll say this also in Davies' defense. He seems to have also toned down on fat people, which I think for us, we were very appreciative.
He has, although it should be noted that the Goblin King is a great big fat guy.
Yeah, but it's a Goblin King. That's a pretty standard stereotype, like the big giant version of the Minions.
True. It's better. This is not 2005 really uncomfortable Davies.
Yeah, the first episode, it's fine. Gatwa gets to show off, and we meet Ruby, and she joins, and they go on their first adventure, which is Space Babies.
Actually, before we get into Space Babies, just two other things I want to note. One, Mrs. Flood. She exists. I don't know who she is. I'm not really going to look into that. I don't care.
We have our theories, but there's no confirmation, and it seems like it's being set up for later.
Yeah. And for this season, Mrs. Flood does basically nothing. But people would bring it up if I didn't mention her, so we had to mention her. The other thing I will say is that this episode kind of presents this starting point of this season of Doctor Who is way more fantasy than science fiction. Like, it leans really hard into metaphor as magic and not really explaining how shit works.
Which is very much in the wheelhouse of early Davies and even the parts of the Moffat era.
To an extent. But here, even the wallpaper of Sci-Fi is kind of gone. Like, the Doctor will just introduce the idea of, oh, the goblins just exist at the edges of time because stories are told about goblins and therefore goblins are real.
Which, again, something we'll come back to in the finale.
Yes, but for now, as you said, Space Babies.
So is this the worst episode of the season?
I hated it. I hated it so much. It is just Uh, I don't. Yeah.
I want to say earlier we talked about how when Gatwa is on, he's great, but there's like 2 episodes where he's not. This is one of them. He is absurd in this episode.
He is over the top camp throughout, but more than that, he's just I don't know what his emotions are in this cuz he's like very friendly and charming and he gives the babies a hug, but also he will just scare them for no reason. He's just coming across as kind of an impish dick.
And then I complimented the effects in this season. That does not cover for the baby effects, where they CGI their mouths, which is horrifying.
It's very, for those of you who are old enough to remember, it's very Quiznos Baby from back in the day. It's very early, like, oh, I just figured out that I can put a mouth on a thing and make it talk.
I'll say a good thing and it transitions into a bad thing.
Mm.
And I think you know what I'm about to talk about. The monster in the episode at the beginning is actually really scary.
They do a good job shooting the monster in the beginning. It's all very quick cuts and close-ups. They don't spend too long, like, looking at it, which is something that Doctor Who usually struggles with, honestly.
Yeah, we don't get a good look at it for a good long time. And then we find out the origin of the monster, and it's okay.
Do you
Okay,
want
this is
me?
a ship full of babies.
Mm-hmm.
And
It's called the Bogeyman. Everyone at home, even if you haven't seen the episode, you can probably figure out where this has gone.
And also, we could just say that although we can compliment that Davies has gotten better, he still ends the episode on a fart joke.
He does.
And it's not the only fart joke of the season.
I also just I don't, and there's an interesting satire in the middle of this on the hypocrisy of being anti-abortion while also being against any form of natal care or care for the parents. In that you will preserve the baby's right to live until it is actually born, at which point you do not care if it dies or not. Which is a really dark concept that this episode about talking babies running a spaceship and being chased by a monster made out of literal fucking boogers is not equipped to handle at all.
I feel like that's something that's throughout a lot of these episodes. It's like concepts and like talking about ideas that the show isn't willing to go into. It doesn't happen all the time, but it happens enough that I notice.
I can see that. Sam, I know that you didn't see this particular part of Doctor Who, but during the Moffat era, there was actually a bit where the monsters were made of eye crusties, so I have to assume that this was Davies trying to top that.
So, should we move on to the next episode?
Yeah, let's talk about the Devil's Cord. I don't want to stay on Space Babies any longer.
It's the worst episode of the season, arguably. There's one episode we have thoughts about.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna plant my flag here right now and just say that Space Babies is my bottom of the season, but we'll hear your opinion later on, and I think you'll find another one in contention.
Yeah, but do you mind if I take the lead on this one real quick?
Sure.
So the Devil's Cord is the next episode, and this is what I meant by the season following a lot of ideas and thematic of the giggle. Because this is a very much a giggle follow-up. Because for one, it has it brings back another one of the Toymaker-esque villains. In this case, like a music monster, I would call it, just as the Maestro.
Yeah, they are now officially called the Pantheon of Discord. So this is a member of the Pantheon of Discord.
At least they're not the Pantheon of Skype. But there's a couple interesting things because this starts off with actually a kind of a fun adventure. Because Ruby, like, the Doctor and Ruby are like, where in the world, anywhere in the universe do we want to go? They're like, I want to go see the Beatles record. And I'm like, that's great. And it's also kind of fun because we're back in 1963 again.
This is also, I do appreciate that this is where we get, like, enthusiastic Doctor. Gatwa, I think, is at his best when he gets to play, like, the overexcited Ren Fair person who just like wants to play dress up and meet with all the people and have the fun adventure.
Again, like I said, we're back to 1963 for I think the first time since Revelation of the Daleks.
Yeah. No.
The Doctor
no,
even
not
points
true.
out, yeah, I'm over. But still, but he even says like, oh yeah, over there somewhere, and he like points to where the TARDIS would be at the beginning in An Unearthly Child,
Yeah.
which I thought was cute.
Yeah. Susan is a big red herring throughout this whole season. This one I think mostly just suffers from really not being able to like fully commit to a plot line or a concept.
I think also it is hard to talk about this episode without talking about the scene chewing monster that is the Maestro.
Yeah, oh god, what's their name?
I am looking it
They're
up.
played by this drag queen who appeared in RuPaul's Drag Race, which of course I have not seen.
They go by Jinx Monsoon.
Jinx Monsoon. Okay.
They are entertaining as hell, but they are chewing the entire
Oh
scenery.
yeah, they're putting Neil Patrick Harris to shame.
He seems subtle in
He
comparison.
does, and that is quite a feat. This episode also really likes to play with the fourth wall in some ways that I find really charming, in other ways that are just weird, very weird.
It also continues the Ruby mystery, which we didn't talk about this before, but certain points throughout the series when Ruby is around, it starts snowing.
Yeah.
The Maestro brings up there's a secret song hidden within you in the big final battle. There is a fun thing where they do a music battle that reminds you of the one from Doctor Strange 2.
Yeah, a little bit.
They're flinging like musical notes at each other while the music plays. It's fun. Again, there's a weird tone moment where they go to the future, and the Maestro is eating music, the concept of music, and in a world without music, basically World War III happens.
Yeah, which, okay, sure. Incidentally, I'm just going to bring this up. This is also kind of a reference to Pyramids of Mars, where in that middle of that episode, Tom Baker actually takes Sarah Jane into the future and shows what happens if they don't stop Sutek and everything is destroyed.
Oh, you think that was on purpose?
I think so.
Considering?
I think so.
Oh, yeah, this episode was fine. Like it was on the upper to middle range, I think.
I'd say it's pretty smack in the middle there. Also, I do not know what they were thinking with the casting for John Lennon and Paul McCartney. They could not have picked two actors who looked less like or sounded less like the actual fucking Beatles.
And also, John and Paul are the only ones we see.
Well, we see Ringo and George, but they're in the background and have no lines.
And they don't do anything important like John and Paul.
Yeah, because no one gives a fuck about George and Ringo.
There's also the dance sequence at the end.
Yeah, that was one of the fourth wall breaking things that I find just very odd.
It was weird because between this and the church on Ruby Road, I'm like, are they trying to fit music, like more musical sequences into this season? But they kind of stop after
So
this.
I do know that apparently the Goblin song from the church on Ruby Road was kind of a minor hit in England because it was a charity special thing. So I kind of wonder if Davies was like trying his hand at it again.
Okay. I mean, it's nothing offensive. It's just very random, and can't tell if it was diegetic or not.
Yeah, and it's a weird way to end the episode. It just comes out of nowhere.
One last thing I'll say about this episode, it kind of is in reference to the entire season, and this isn't a good or bad thing, it's just kind of weird. The Doctor does not have a set look in this season. The Doctor changes outfits constantly.
He does, but I do think, like, in a weird way, I think that was exploring, like, how he's still figuring out the Doctor, because at the end, I think we get a settled Doctor look.
Yeah, and it looks good. It's very interesting because in the last recording, I talked about my theory of what they're doing with Gatwa, and I think I was completely wrong. I think you were right.
I was right about
when
what?
we did the original 3 stories, and I talked about what Gatwa represented when he was bi-generated. I know we've had the bi-generation conversation. He was the clean slate, and you weren't sure. I'm pretty sure I was completely wrong.
Yeah, no, I think that this is basically just a Doctor who has gone into full repression.
It's kind of like a more extreme Matt Smith.
Although I will say, an interview I saw with Davies does make me wonder if maybe what I'm reading as full-on repression not working was Davies trying something else. So Davies said that he wanted this Doctor to be extremely emotional at all times, because he wanted young boys watching the show to know that it's okay to feel their emotions.
Okay.
Which is, it's a good sentiment, but I feel like a lot of the time it just comes across as him trying so hard to restrain himself.
And again, he still talks about stuff like full of regret. It's not about the Time War necessarily, but he's clearly still regrets a lot of things.
Yeah, the Time War is definitely mixed up in there, as is Flux, as is what happened to all the companions.
And I think we'll get into that a little bit in a couple episodes, but should we move on to Boom?
Boom, the high point of the entire season, as written by Stephen Moffat.
I win! I win!
I think if nothing else, we have proven that the best work from Russell T Davies or Stephen Moffat comes when Moffat writes and Davies produces.
That's a great episode. Like, it's a few silly things and a few not great things.
It's got a couple of weak points, but on the whole, I think it works really well.
It's almost a bottle episode. Like, it's a very small cast. It's a very small location. But again, the effects are still really good. The planet, like that sky view, is very beautiful.
It is, and I do appreciate how much they're able to do with the Doctor just stuck on a landmine.
Which is the premise of the episode. The Doctor is stuck on this war-torn world, and he accidentally steps on a landmine. And if he moves, it will kill pretty much everyone.
I also absolutely love the commentary about how the global military-industrial complex is its own like self-fulfilling cycle that just isn't designed to win wars, but designed to just keep wars constantly going.
Also, how those complexes actually handle injured soldiers in and out of conflict, because it starts with a soldier getting a decent but survivable injury, and they just decide to kill him.
Yeah, because he is no longer fit for full combat, and therefore is deemed worthless.
Yeah.
I do want to say that this is precisely the type of thing where it's a really dark concept that is still able to get through, even with like kid-friendly-ifying it a bit, as opposed to Space Babies, which just takes a really dark concept and fucking turns it into Teletubbies for some ungodly reason. What the fuck was happening with Space Babies?
The Teletubbies meets Alien.
It was! No one wants that! Who wanted that?
But yeah, you explained the Davies' idea about Gatwa. I think this episode actually works really well for like the emotional Doctor, because he's crying because this is not a normal landmine. It's a landmine that I think the idea was it uses the creature's internal energy to create more of an explosion, and because the Doctor's a Time Lord with all this crazy stuff, he will take half the planet with him.
Actually, based on what we see, I think it's the opposite. The idea seems to be that it's a landmine that instead of blowing up, vaporizes you from within, so you're not taking out, like, other stuff. But because the Doctor is a Time Lord full of regeneration energy, it would generate a really massive boom. Yeah. But I could be wrong. It's been a while.
I think it was a good episode. I think the twist where the Doctor's able to convince them there is no opposing faction was actually really good.
I agree. I have two quibbles I do want to bring up with the episode. One is this really pointless love story going on the side that ends in unnecessary tragedy for just the sake of being sad, and I find that really cheap and lazy. And the second point that I would bring up is that the resolution is maybe a little it's a little simple.
In terms of the first thing, I think it wasn't unnecessary given some information we found out.
Yeah, it was probably just there to clear the way for Mundy to join us next season, which is apparently happening.
Yeah, her actor and assumedly her character is coming back, which this is like the first a companion, if she's not like a one-off like What's-His-Face from season 1, to be a companion not from modern day.
Yeah, aside from Jack Harkness, maybe.
Or Adam was his name, I think it was.
Depending how you count it. Yeah, or Adam, sure, if you want to count
That's what I'm saying,
Adam.
if you count Adam. But yeah, it seems like Mundy's actress is set to be one of the companions for the next season. So that's interesting.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that plays out. Do you have any response to me saying the resolution is maybe a little pat?
A little simple, and it's again very children's fantasy where essentially the ghost of the father saves the day.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this is just kind of a general New Who problem, that because we're doing individual episodes now, as opposed to every story being a multi-episode story. We don't have as much time for a big finish. So things kind of suddenly get very easy towards the end of episodes.
Well, no, Josh, big finishes for the audio dramas.
Touche. Touche.
You have anything else to say about Boom?
Nope. I think it's time we move on to your other favorite episode, Sam.
Okay, so we're on episode 4, 73 yards.
Before we get into it, I just want to say I spend a lot of time in like social media around Doctor Who, and this might be the most divisive episode since Love and Monsters. You either really love it or really don't.
I've seen people either say this is brilliant or complete garbage. Like, I've seen at the top of
Yeah.
lists or at the very bottom. So, when I watched this with you, because this is still, like I said, when I watched these episodes, you had seen all of them up until the season finale.
Mm-hmm.
And so you knew what we were going into. And again, this continues this weird supernatural theme. I talked about this. My big thing was what this episode reminds me the most of is Turn Left.
Yeah. Yeah, there's even I didn't catch this the first time, but on rewatch, there's a slight reference to Turn Left at the beginning of the episode. Just a brief mention of the bug from Turn Left is brought up.
But yeah, briefly summarized, the Doctor and Ruby go to Scotland, I think it is.
Wales.
Wales, apologies. I'm not good with my UK landmark locations.
Don't worry, Sam. If there's one thing I know about people in the UK, they're very chill about getting confused for which country they're from.
And to briefly summarize, they disrupt some kind of thing, and the Doctor disappears, and suddenly Ruby keeps seeing this figure of an old woman doing the Macarena or something. And whenever people go to talk to her what her deal is, they look at Ruby in horror, start running, and refuse to speak to her.
The basic like fear of this episode seems to be fear of isolation. It's a monster that works to keep you moving and keep anyone from being able to get close to you.
So here's the problem. And I think it's also the point, which is why this is a divisive episode. This is such a bleak fucking episode.
It's very bleak. Incredibly bleak. It's weird. Space Babies was like dark concept handled way too juvenilely. Boom hit this sweet spot of getting it just right, and 73 Yards goes way in the other direction.
I'm saying this doesn't feel like a Doctor Who episode. And again, like my closest comparison was Turn Left, but yeah, it goes way farther than Turn Left.
The thing I would actually compare it to, it reminds me a lot of Black Mirror. It has that sort of like hopeless, overly like realistic, but still in the speculative fiction area vibe of early Black Mirror.
I also just realized we never gave like a spoiler warning, but yeah, we're spoiling the season.
I mean, I told everyone at the front we weren't summarizing, so everyone we assume everyone has seen it. So
yeah, I'm just like, okay, like the stuff Ruby does all makes sense because she asked her family, she gets a unit, and unit is like doing up until a point the smartest things unit could do, and then it doesn't work because this is a thing. And of course, there's the big twist that at the end, this is Ruby trying to tell herself to not disrupt the magical thing.
Maybe. The ending's really uncertain. I can give my thoughts on what I think metaphorically is going on, at least. So in my opinion, I think this is an existential episode about how we respond once we are aware of our impending death, and like going through sort of the stages of grief for ourselves. Where in the beginning, Ruby keeps trying to find a workaround. She falls into depression and anger. She ends up distancing herself from everyone. She can't get a relationship. She has to leave her job. And eventually she finds this one clear purpose in stopping this wicked Welsh prime minister. And I'm not going to get into like what's going on there because I don't fully understand it, if I'm being honest, and it doesn't seem to make sense to me. But okay.
It will come back and it won't make any sense.
Yeah, no, it does not. But she like devotes herself to stopping this guy, and eventually she does, and it all seems to align with what she thinks of this predestined idea, and so she expects that everything will return to normal, but it doesn't. This thing is still on the edge of her vision, it still hounds her, and eventually we cut to her in old age where she's just accepting of it, allowing it to take her, and that's what ultimately causes her to find peace in a way. So I think this is sort of a like existential meditation on death.
Here's the problem.
Well, there's a number of problems, but tell me yours first.
And I think this is something we're going to have to get into. I still don't feel like I have a good grasp on Ruby's character, even with this entire episode.
Nope, nope, not at all. Her reaction seems just very generic.
I did not, like, in every other episode, I was able to find something to enjoy. Even in Space Babies, like I said, I liked the early parts when we didn't know what was up with the monster. I just didn't enjoy any of this.
No, it's I think my biggest problem with this episode is it's just this is the first and only episode of Doctor Who that I think I can say this about. It doesn't feel like the show. Like, there are episodes of Doctor Who I hate way more than this. I found way harder to watch than this. But this is the only time where I'm watching it and I had to keep reminding myself this was an episode of Doctor Who. I think there's limits. And I think Davies finally found the limits.
And again, it's all pointless in the end because they don't mess the thing up. And so none of this happens. Or it does.
So it's just a bleak, empty episode.
So speaking of mixed episodes,
Oh boy, Dot and Bubble.
I know writers who use subtext and they're all cowards.
So this is the only episode where on rewatch I found myself liking it more than I did on first watch. But even then, it is hard to enjoy it.
Do you think knowing the quote unquote twist at the end helped you retroactively?
Yes, I think it did. Because suddenly I'm seeing these people, the people of I forget what it's called, like Smileville or something like that.
Fine Time.
Fine Time, sure, whatever. The people of Fine Time, when you first see them, you think they're just ditzy idiots. And I didn't really care if they got saved or not. I didn't like them, but I didn't have a lot to grab onto. On a second watch, I'm suddenly noticing, like, oh, they actually are, like, awful people. And I'm really seeing how objectively awful they are in a way that I didn't the first time.
Again, brief summary. This town of Fine Time, all these people that are like under, like 30 or under mostly, and they're on Twitter. They're on Twitter, Discord, Twitch, any social media. And suddenly people are disappearing and it's these weird bug monsters. And the doctor and Ruby, I keep wanting to say Rose, they're trying to help her. And we both agreed that the better part should be there shouldn't have been monsters. It should have just been the app trying to kill them from the beginning.
Yeah, like the big reveal, the first big reveal that the app itself has gained sentience and grown to hate them and is trying to kill them by apparently growing an entire alien species somewhere and sending it to eat them in alphabetical order for some reason. I don't follow this thing's plan. This is not an artificial intelligence. This is an artificial dumbass.
It's also weird because later on we see that the dot, the social media device, can just fly around and kill them.
Yeah, it can literally fly through a guy's skull. So it had a very simple way to just kill everyone.
Like, we talked about this when I watched it. My idea was, there's no monster. People are disappearing. You hear a scream and you don't know what's going on.
The first time I watched it, what I suspected the big twist was going to be was that they were being farmed. That the alien race itself was behind Dot and Bubble and growing these people to just be eaten.
I kind of got that vibe too, yeah.
But they don't do that. And I was fully ready to just write this off as a very boomerish critique of social media. Because here's the thing, there's a lot that you can criticize social media for. You can question how it's pirating our information to use with companies, how it is depriving us of any form of privacy, how it's basically creating an addictive method for advertisers to attack us. But the thing that this decided to go on is kids are looking at their phones and not noticing the world. It's making them all stupid and just screen obsessed zombies. And I'm like, fuck off, Davies. You fucking old.
Do you see?
It's so.
Do you see?
It's like such a grandpa cartoon critique of social media. It's so fucking stupid and basic.
It reminded me of the second half of WALL-E. It reminded me of WALL-E, but again, WALL-E handled it better. So do you want to talk about the good part of this episode?
Yeah, so I was completely ready to write this off as just like Space Babies 2, just another maybe interesting concept done horribly. And then we get to the end where the doctor's like, I will now save all of you. You can get into my time machine and I can take you somewhere safe and everything will be fine. And they're like, no, because you're beneath us. It's heavily implied it's because the doctor's black.
Throughout the episode, unless you don't notice it, everyone in there is very white.
They are, and I didn't pick that up the first time, but the second time I'm like, oh, wait a minute, they're all fucking Norwegians. What the fuck?
And this again goes into the doctor, because again, like, regardless of what Davies says, this is the moment where I'm like, no, the doctor still regrets a lot because he literally starts screaming about, like, I can save you, let me save you, don't let this happen.
Yeah, that moment is deeply powerful. And again, watching it again, suddenly, like, the girl we're following, Lindy, I notice she's saying, like, guys, look, I know that this is breaking all the rules, but we can trust him. He's one of the good ones. Like, dog whistles are sprinkled throughout this fucking episode, and I suddenly was like, oh, this is brilliant. So the social media commentary is itself a smokescreen for racist commentary, much in the same way that racists get away on social media by not being as direct, but finding ways to plant the message in anyway. That's brilliant. And the doctor freaking out because he wants to save them even though they're terrible, and they just won't, is also brilliant. This is all brilliant. I love this. Why was it the whole episode like this?
It's an entire episode, the doctor able to save an entire group of people, them just refusing because of bigotry. And I'll say this, because this came out, that scene at the end, like, this scene that we're commenting is like the last 5 minutes, unfortunately, of this hour-long episode. But apparently that was Gottwa's first, like, scene. And it's like,
Yes.
holy shit.
Oh my god, he was great.
I will say the one other negative I have to say is, and this is a struggle for a lot of actors, Ruby's actor was not able to really handle acting in front of a green screen without anyone.
No, she wasn't. Gottwa did much better with it.
Yeah, she seemed to struggle a lot more with the emotions and everything.
You could just tell she was deeply uncomfortable with it.
She was in person, it was immediately better.
Yeah.
Like, we don't love Ruby. I think it's pretty obvious, but she's performed fine.
Millie Gibbs, I think her name is Millie Gibson, is the actress.
Something like that.
Millie Gibson, I think, does a really good job making this very character generally very likable and relatable, but there's no there. She is just another pretty blonde girl in the TARDIS.
But yeah, it is an episode that is brought up hard by its ending.
It is, but I don't know if that fixes the other 50 minutes of this fucking episode. I was just going to say also, the comedy is just painful. Like, there are multiple bits about how she doesn't know how to walk without her bubble.
Or all my friends, all my 30 friends who I haven't talked to because it's Twitter/Discord/Facebook.
Yeah, it's just... Oh, we have a doctor that tells us when we need to pee. Excellent commentary, Russell. You sure nailed something, I'm sure.
One part of the social media commentary I thought was funny was you saw all these ages, and clearly a lot of them were probably older than they were presenting themselves as.
Yeah, although I don't know if that was actual, like, critique or if that was just Dawson casting.
I think it might have been intentional, because if he was going to keep attacking social media, that is another thing. catfishing or whatever you want to call it.
There is something else that I feel needs to be mentioned.
Mm.
So, a common thing that was done throughout this episode was showing that everyone was heavily made up, including the men. There was actually a lot showing how effeminate the men were acting and dressed, versus the one good guy that we see who is easily the most masculine presenting of the bunch. And that's a little awkward.
Anything else we want to say about Dot and Bubble?
No, not really.
I'd say it's like low middle.
I cannot rate it. The highs are so high, but the lows are so low. I don't know what I feel.
Like, I'll say it again just real briefly. 73 Yards is probably a better put together episode. I just don't want to ever watch it again.
I probably would be more willing to rewatch this episode than either 73 Yards or Space Babies, but I don't know if that means I think it's better.
Luckily, the next episode is actually pretty fun.
Yeah, Rogue is Doctor Who Goes Bridgerton, and also the Doctor hooks up with Jack Harkness 2.0.
Minus the scumbag, hopefully.
Minus the scumbag. You know, I think this is actually a very interesting exploration of how cool has changed over the years. Because when Jack Harkness first showed up, he was very much this mid-2000s idea of cool, where he's this ladies' man with all of the quips and a martini, and he's got this gun, and
It's Han Solo.
Yeah, he's Han Solo. But, like, Han Solo crossed with James Bond, you know? And this Rogue is still seemingly trying to be cool, but he's more self-deprecating. He has a nerd side. He's quippy in a way that is more about, like, him awkwardly being in a situation.
Sardonic.
Yeah, like, it's hard to really say, but it's more Marvel quippy than Han Solo quippy.
That being said, I know Marvel quippiness has gone a little overdone, but I thought he was fine.
Yeah, and it's not as self-aware, I will say. It's not like he's showing up and being like, "Oh, the shapeshifters are chicken people, huh? Bok bok." Like it's not poking at the fourth wall in that way.
Going back, because this is something we talked about briefly in the original like special recording, and it's become a lot more blatant in this season. This Gollum might be the gayest Doctor.
Okay. So
Openly gay, at least.
if we're talking about just what's on TV presentation, and it's not subtext, yes, I will grant you, Got was the gayest Doctor. But 2 and 3 definitely had their gay sides.
Yeah, but this is written intentionally, I mean.
Also 6. 6 was very much the catty gay. But that's...
Yeah. Like, the Doctor, like, spends a lot of the episode of Rogue flirting with the titular Rogue, whose name we never actually learn, which is fine.
Yeah, we only know him as Rogue. And you know what? I'll say it. Dr. Rogue is a cute ship. They're cute together. I like them.
I say this as the Moffat guy. I'm like, I do like them more than him and River.
Yeah, I can see that. As for, like, the mystery going on, it's fine.
The villains are fine. It really is the setting, because, again, the Doctor, in another very good outfit. I like his hair. His hair is very good in this. And there's some really good emotional moments, because the villains are basically evil cosplayers, or they should be called role players, but they kept saying cosplay.
Yeah, because I think they just felt like cosplay just has more of a, like, nerdy fanboy association.
Again, going back to us being worried about what Russell might fall back into old habits, at least when these people pretend to be humans, they aren't big fat farting people.
They are not. No. There are a couple of things I want to say about them, though, that I was a little iffy about. First of all, that they called it cosplay. The one alien has the line, "We will cosplay this world to death."
That was silly.
Yeah, I feel like you could have made the comparison and had it be funny without being so overt. But also, here's my other question. Why aren't they Zygons?
Because the season, up until a certain point, didn't want to use classic enemies.
Yeah, maybe that's it. Maybe they just didn't want to be digging into Classic Who.
Till a certain point, but that was something I was going to bring up. It's something I brought up to you when we got near the end of the episodes. I'm like, There is no Dalek episode. We don't see Cybermen, Silurians,
Yeah.
Sontarans. I appreciate that they tried to do new stuff. Like, if you're going to be like, it's the new Davies era, he's not relying on the old stuff.
Fair enough. I will also say the twist of how not that she survived. I don't think either of us were ever thinking that Ruby was actually in danger. But I will say you saw the twist with it coming and I didn't. So I have to give the episode credit for that.
It felt too obvious.
Mm.
To me at least, but I also look into stuff way too deeply. I'm like, okay, she's doing the weird head juddering movements on like a little too much, and she's acting. I'm like, no, this is Ruby. This is going to end up being Ruby, not the because yeah.
Yeah.
The one problem, and I'll start off with the positive. Part of the way they get to the monsters is they start causing Bridgerton-esque drama with the Doctor and Rogue.
Okay. You know what? You finish because I think maybe we're going to the same place.
Like, they start dancing together, which two men, especially one of color and one of not, dancing. Although the people here were very multicultural for a 1800s British party.
New Who has a tendency to do that. Like it's just sort of like if you go back and watch a lot of the original Russell run, you'll see black people just kind of hanging out in Victorian England, and you're like, how is that not causing problems?
But yeah, that's fine, but whatever. It was more about the fact that it was two men dancing in a very romantic way, and they were trying to stir up drama. Like, the Doctor started pretending to have drama, and then it gets kind of real for the Doctor because they do like a fake, him and Rogue do like a fake proposal, and the Doctor seems to get really into it. Like
Yeah.
he actually breaks character.
Okay, there's something I do need to say here, which is that I feel like New Who has a real problem establishing when we're just going to have new customs and ideas in the old time and it's just going to fly by everyone, and when it's actually going to be a thing, cuz like the proposal of one man to another should not have gotten them a how scandalous. It should have gotten them a they're committing like a crime. That is not legal in England in 1813.
Yeah,
They should have been kicked out of the party.
that would have been probably the best way to do it, but I think Russell was trying not to go too deep into that kind of stuff, but it is distracting.
I mean, I to an extent I get it. Doctor Who is not proper history. It's very much a, you know, fun Ren Fair version of history. It always has been, even going back to classic Who. And you don't want to introduce that much accuracy to it because then your positive gay moment is going to be smacked down by 200-year ago homophobia. And that's gonna suck.
Actually, gay people weren't allowed to be a thing in the 1800s. Shut up, you.
Yeah. But at the same time, if you're going to bring up that it is scandalous, and then this is the only extent you take with it, like, it's kind of having your cake and eating it too. You kind of got to pick a side here, Davies.
I wonder if the idea for him was this would have been a scandalous scene even if it was a man and a woman.
I mean, it would have been. That is true. Although, then Rogue says something along the lines of, I don't see how us dancing is going to be scandalous. And the Doctor says, you clearly haven't done enough research on this time period, babes. And that is a pretty strong indication that I keep saying Russell. This episode wasn't even written by Russell, but that they were clearly going for a gay, like, subtext there. They meant the homophobia.
Yeah. And then my other problem, and I think we're both... hey, kids, you like the bury your gays trope?
I mean, to be fair, I feel it's abundantly clear that Rogue will be back.
I hope. Because, again, I liked him. Like, they don't say he's dead. It's basically the Phantom Zone from Superman.
Yeah. Incidentally, we need to talk about the Doctor's pacifism again, because...
I was going to say, we should wait till the season finale for this conversation.
I know, but can I just say this one thing?
Sure.
Rogue wants to kill the Shape Changers, and the Doctor's perspective on this is, no, I can't let you kill them. Instead, let me abandon them on a barren dimension with no food or water, so that they will slowly starve and die of thirst. That's the humane way to do this. Like, what the fuck, Doctor? Yeah, so let's talk about the one thing that everyone is talking about this season, the finale.
Do we want to split it up or do we want to do them together?
No, let's do it together. So the finale is titled both The Legend of Ruby Sunday, even though Ruby Sunday has very little to do with that particular episode, and Empire of Death, which is at the very least a more appropriate title.
So there's two things we need to cover that we've been kind of being vague about for this season. First of all, the reoccurring mystery of the season is Ruby's mother.
That is the ongoing mystery, yeah, the active mystery box.
And then there is the mystery woman, because wherever they go, we keep seeing the same woman in every episode in different incarnations. I got her mixed up with Mrs. Flood, who is a different thing in the first episode.
No, that's a different gray-haired white lady who is also British. How dare you?
And they establish the Doctor and Ruby do notice, oh, this lady's showing up everywhere. And they reveal her name as Susan Triad.
And because it was mentioned earlier, they think, oh, this is Susan. And Susan, for the record, doesn't enter into this in any way.
Yeah, Susan as in the Doctor's granddaughter, Susan,
yeah,
for the record.
Once again, we're not going to summarize the episode because it's really long and a lot of stuff technically happens, but also at the same time, not a lot actually happens.
So should we just jump to Sutek then?
Yeah. First episode is just drawn out suspense of what's going on. Turns out the answer is Sutek from Pyramids of Mars is back and is using the TARDIS. Okay, this we do need to talk about.
Yeah, how about you explain Sutek for the people who might not know?
So, for the record, I am not counting the audios, the comic, the prose. I could go into that, I'm not gonna. In the original episode, Sutek is one of the Osirans, which is basically an alien race that was on the level of, like, Time Lords. He's part of what they call the Court, which is basically just, they became the Egyptian gods for us because we're doing an Eternals thing where aliens came to Earth and acted out their bullshit, and that became the basis of Egyptian mythology. It's implied that all mythology is kind of this.
Common sci-fi trope.
Sutek is also Set and Anubis. He is the god of death, who killed Osiris. And his shtick is that he believes death is the greatest gift that anyone could have. That it is a relief from pain and misery, that it is freedom from, like, the burdens of living. So he just wants to grant death to the universe, bringing it all under his domain, but also making it better, because life is just pain and conflict and misery and all of that stuff.
I play Final Fantasy XIV, so I have seen this theme very similarly enacted before.
Yeah, it's also in Final Fantasy VIII. Pretty sure it's in Final Fantasy VI.
Yep. And
10? 10. Final Fantasy X.
It's a good villain idea. I like it.
It's well handled in Pyramids of Mars because he's a very intimidating figure, and I appreciate that they brought the voice actor back.
Great voice.
So, here's apparently what happened after Pyramids of Mars. So the Doctor trapped Sutek in a time tunnel and basically sent him forward all the way to his death. Except what actually happened is Sutek escaped into the time vortex, latched onto the TARDIS, and apparently has just been there for the 50-plus years of the TARDIS jumping around.
Quote Sam Reich from Game Changer, I've been here the whole time.
Yes, he has always been there. All the times the TARDIS blew up, he was there. The time that it shrunk down, he was there.
The times where there were multiple TARDISes in one location? Were there multiple Suteks for the 50th anniversary?
When the TARDIS was temporarily turned into a tangerine, he was also a ghost tangerine, I guess. I don't know. What the fuck?
Was the TARDIS inside the TARDIS that one time the Doctor had to get it scanned? Was Sutek inside of Sutek?
The TARDIS was inside the TARDIS once when the Master put it in there. That may have been before Pyramids of Mars, though.
I think, no, because that was the last Tom Baker adventure. So this was
Oh,
after.
yeah, you're right. Yeah, no, so the Sutek was inside himself.
as many people pointed out, that very touching scene in the Jodie era with her and Yaz on top of the TARDIS looking at Earth, Sutek was sitting right behind them.
Yes. And when Jack Harkness is gripped onto the side of the TARDIS, Sutek was right there with him.
When the Pandorica opened and the Big Bang exploded, I guess Sutek was hanging onto the fragments of the TARDIS. We can keep going.
Well, yeah, like, this makes no sense. And it was so easy to not do. Just say he popped on at the start of this season and has been traveling with you the whole time, or something.
So I want to present, because we talked about this, and I want to talk about one of the theories I heard going into this season. I remember I told you about this?
Yeah.
The salt thing? So back in Wild Blue Yonder, the Doctor, to stop the weird creatures, did like a a superstitious salt guard, and then it got flown into the void. And one of the theories is why like the Maestro and the toy maker, they're so much more powerful, and why the theme seems to be like fantasy and stuff was the Doctor brought like more superstition and magic, because 73 Yards also was a very superstitious folk themed episode.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's how Sutek became so powerful, like, because like you said, he was on par with like a Time Lord. He was not a god, like an actual god.
Although I will say, so I had to go back and reflect on what I knew of these characters from the show and what I knew of these characters from the external media. And the thing is, even the toy maker, arguably, is not god level in the original show. Now he apparently is. Now he can apparently just turn the Guardians into fucking playing cards, which, fuck you know, but okay.
And real, like, again, our big comparison back with the toy maker was he's Q now.
Yeah, so maybe, like, I was getting a little stupid complaining about Doctor Who power levels there. But yeah, no, this Sutek is definitely more powerful than the guy we saw back in the 70s. But apparently that just happened because he absorbed the time vortex or something while riding on the TARDIS.
I'm trying to remember where I was going with this, because I heard that theory. We were talking about Sutek.
You said that Sutek should have jumped on when they went to the edge of the universe.
Yes, that should have been like when Donna and the 14th Doctor, because we have to call him that, went to the edge of the universe. That should have been when Sutek latched on. He was shunted forward to his death, which is there, the edge of the universe.
Yeah, but no, he apparently jumped on immediately and has been riding with the Doctor for 50 years and just never fucking did anything, ever.
That's only 50 years from our perspective. We're not even counting however long the Time War was, Matt Smith's 200-year travel without Amy and Rory.
Yeah.
The billion years that Capaldi spent punching a rock.
I mean, if we can take the Doctor's ages as canon, which, first of all, no, we can't. They don't make any sense. But if we could...
Especially with the Timeless Child stuff.
Yeah, but we're not even dealing with that. That is completely divorced from this conversation.
Yes.
But if we take that, then he should have been writing for like 300 years. At least. And apparently never did anything. Just periodically made this woman exist.
Like, I kept making jokes about the episode The Doctor's Wife when we got to this reveal, because I'm like, oh, did House not detect this? Could the TARDIS not tell that the God of Death had its balls on her head?
Did none of the other Time Lords notice the multiple times that the Doctor took the TARDIS to Gallifrey?
Like, again, going back to Tom Baker's last episode, the entire plot is the TARDIS needs to be very specifically measured and scanned. Before
we get to the end of the whole thing, a few things on Unit, cause...
Oh no.
What the fuck?
Oh.
Question 1. Why did we replace cool badass wheelchair lady with this obnoxious child genius character?
I missed Wheelchair Lady so much. She was really fun in the specials.
Yes, she was.
Can I say number 2?
Sure.
Hey, look, Rose Noble is there.
Yep.
All right, number 3.
My favorite shot, though, in part 2 is all of the Unit agents trying to take out Sutek with these guns, and Rose Noble's just on her iPad like, yep, it's a Tuesday.
Okay, number 3.
Number 3. What are the fucking hiring practices at Unit that they didn't notice Harriet Arbinger?
My name is Dr. Acula.
I remember I saw so many people saying like other unit employees that they never noticed. Dale Koenig or Dalek,
Yeah.
Deborah Davros, Ber man.
Sam Taran.
I mean, you've got Dr. Acula, so I guess we can also put Alucard in there.
Harriet Arbinger. Do you want to talk about Mel?
For the most part, I like Mel in this two-parter. I'm not really going to get hung up on her versus in her run, because it's very different, but enough time has passed, she could have evolved. I'm going to say that I preferred her going off and being a space pirate to working at UNIT, but ending up at UNIT just seems to be what we do with the companions that we've decided we're keeping around.
I don't know. It's better than like how Dragon Ball handles its female characters, I guess.
True.
And then they became housewives.
And I mean, classic Who's way of dealing with the companions was either they get their memory erased or they get married. So.
Happened to Donna, both of those.
Yep. Yes, it did.
So now we got to get back to Ruby.
Actually, you know what? Let's save Ruby for the end.
Okay. Yeah, actually, that makes sense.
Because I feel like there's going to be a lot to talk about there.
But yeah, Sutek succeeds, basically.
Yeah, Sutek spreads his wave of death, which is starting to kill everyone in the universe. Why it kills some people but not others is a little confusing, but whatever.
I got to make a joke about the mummy because they start running from a wall of sand.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
And to be fair, one of the positives you did say is this does still fit Sutek's MO.
Yes, it does. Sutek is in character.
It's just way more powerful.
Yeah, which I can accept. The Time Vortex does weird shit all the time.
What?
Oh, wait, one more thing we have to bring up.
Yes.
Sutek definitely saw River Song being copulated.
Yep.
That definitely happened.
What the fuck is going on down there?
Why is there a Centurion outfit involved?
The pirate outfit. Oh, wait, no, the pirate outfit was afterwards.
Fair.
Pirate Amy
fair.
was season 6.
So anyway, they run around doing a bunch of nonsense that doesn't matter for a while, and then they notice that Ruby is getting flashbacks to 73 yards, despite the fact that it didn't happen.
Before that, the way the Doctor, Ruby, and Mel survive in the makeshift TARDIS that has all the references in it was cute.
It was, but I now have a question.
Okay.
So, this thing is made up of Ruby's memories of the time. The Doctor specifically tells her to remember harder to help manifest this new TARDIS. And it's made up of references to Doctor adventures from before Ruby showed up.
I think I can explain this one.
Okay.
Doctor and Mel are also there. I'm guessing enough psychic energy is from the Doctor and Mel helped influence the TARDIS, this makeshift TARDIS as well.
Fair enough. I mean, I don't care that
And
much.
I mean, like,
it's
very specifically.
I like the Easter eggs.
Mel specifically goes and sees the Sixth Doctor's coat.
Yes, and later on we see her snuggling with the Seventh Doctor's sweater vest, which I think is really cool.
So obviously, I think Mel's memories were also involved, and then the Doctor in general.
Yeah. But anyway, they pop into this newly made memory TARDIS. Then we discover that Ruby is getting flashbacks to 73 yards. For some reason, you would think that this will be important. And it isn't.
When we watch 73 Yards, one of my things, kind of like when we discussed the specials, and I said, as long as David Tennant doesn't show up, I can deal with the bi-generation. I was like, if 73 Yards comes back up, then maybe I'll accept this. The way it came back up, I do not accept.
No, it's a complete red herring. It's just there to get them to look into Ruby's past, because it turns out even Sutek wants to know who is Ruby's baby mama. Oh no, sorry, Ruby is the baby. Who is Ruby's mama?
Should we say what our theories were going into this?
If you want.
I mean, our theory we came to at the end was a Philip J. Fry scenario. She was her own mother.
There was that. I also thought that she was maybe going to be revealed to be the Doctor's daughter and thus Susan's mother, because they had a little bit there about the Doctor never having met his actual kids, even though he had a grandkid.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. I like that. I'm hoping that comes back around in the future somehow, because I would like to see that.
And there was also, she's the master with amnesia.
Yeah,
she is the master's kid, but she's human.
She's another Eternal or whatever. We'll get into what Ruby's actual thing is, but apparently Ruby's snow thing is causing such a disruption, even Sutek doesn't know what's going on and needs to know who her mom is. But it turns out that this is all misdirection so that they can just get close enough to Sutek to do what they're going to do. Do you want to say what you were going to say before I talk about how they defeat Sutek?
No, it's fine. Go and talk about how. Let's take a walk about this.
They leash Sutek, the god of death, with a bungee cord and drag him into the time vortex.
For reference, he looks like a giant dog monster at this
Yeah,
point.
because again, Egyptian afterlife, Anubis. etc.
They attach a magic bungee cord and start dragging him through time and space.
The god of death, able to wipe out the universe, can't handle a bungee cord. His one weakness.
Well, yeah, he had to go for his walkies.
I hate it so much.
And now I think we need to go back to that discussion about the Doctor's pacifism.
So the Doctor is dragging him through the time vortex, which, incidentally, is basically just what the Fourth Doctor did to him. But you see, the Doctor realizes that Sutek has actually won because the Doctor now must kill Sutek, and he's just so torn up about it. Even though he did this 11 regenerations ago.
You know, he technically killed all the goblins by making them not exist.
He impaled the Goblin King with a church! We didn't even talk about that, but he literally impaled the Goblin King with a church. How the fuck is that okay?
And then the Doctor gives what I would call, and this is me as a fan, this is a very Moffat speech that he gives.
It is, although Russell likes to give him these as well.
Yeah, but it's a very Pandorica opens, I am this big badass, I'm gonna do this thing because I am Death, Destroyer of Worlds, blah, 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 but I am going to kill death to bring life.
No, Sam, he is Destroyer of Death, Bringer of Life. It's painful. It's obnoxious, and it's so try-hard.
Yes, Doctor Who, I also like Blackest Night.
Yes, Doctor Who, I also like the Doctor. Can we fucking get off it now?
But yeah, they kill Death.
Which brings everyone back to life because reasons.
Including the robot.
Including the robot. The robot is back. Everyone's alive.
You think killing Death is going to have repercussions?
No, probably not.
I made a joke after this that where I'm like, oh, so now next season's going to be the nice, happy, less angsty, not less dark season, right?
Okay, I think we can finally get to the moment that broke the internet.
We are on the negative side of the Davies fandom, I think it's fair to say.
I think we're certainly on the negative side of this season.
Yeah, but we were the people that were nervous about Davies coming back.
Yeah, even the people who were excited.
There were people who were excited and they're like, fuck, this is not me dissing the Whittaker era, but this is what I hear. Everyone's like, finally, we're back to Doctor Who the right way, blah, 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 blah. Even those people are like, with this part, we're like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
Huh?
So, it turns out Unit can, in fact, find Ruby's mom. And this ancestry that gave Ruby her special powers that even the god of death himself could not see, that perplexed the maestro, that allowed her to summon snow out of nothing, is a mortal woman. She's just a lady. She was a 15-year-old, had a baby too young, abandoned it at a church, and somehow also got a cloak, and for reasons pointed at a sign which gave her name, despite the fact that there is no one there to see it. There is no...
The Doctor's there, but no.
What?
This was rewritten. This had to be something that they changed their mind about.
I think they legitimately went into this not knowing where they were going, and Davies had to just come up with something.
But yeah, the idea as presented is a mystery of this girl who never met her mother was so powerful that it made her important.
All of you adopted children at home, remember, if you don't develop superpowers, you don't want to know your biological parents enough. That's the only reason.
You know, the other thing I heard? This is what idiots think the Ray twist in The Last Jedi is.
It is. This is how idiots felt after The Last Jedi.
Which means in the next season when she comes back, her dad is actually going to be someone important and dumb. Her dad's going to be the master.
Honestly, I wouldn't put it past him.
But yeah, there's a scene where I was worried about where she actually goes to meet her.
Yeah, I don't hate it, although Gatwa Doctor is a real dick in that scene for some reason.
I get what he's going for, but he handles it badly.
He's like, oh, maybe it's better if she doesn't know. We use time travel. We cheated. Like, fuck you, Doctor. Let her see her mom if she wants. Fuck off.
Yeah, I was nervous because like I was going with the idea maybe she doesn't see her and it's okay. She knows she's alive, but she does see her and she doesn't confess, and it's a little stilted, but it's okay. And turns out she did want to. The mother was always too nervous to reach out and try and find her.
Yeah.
And it's fine.
Honestly, I would probably call it a very tender moment, except that it was preceded by the dumbest twist in Doctor Who history, so fuck off.
You have to remember, for the 73 yards tie-in thing, they go back to that time period to get a genetic sample, basically, because in that time period, you have to register your DNA, basically.
Yeah, which, like, what? Also, like, if she's is some grand cosmic being, or not from the UK, you're kind of fucked. Because it's not like the UK can demand that everyone in fucking Asia register their DNA.
I think the idea was just that it was probably a worldwide thing at that point, but whatever. I can ignore that part.
Doesn't make sense.
I know, but I'm just devil's advocate. But yeah, then Ruby, her mom, and her adopted family all get together, and she has a moment where I'm like, oh, is Ruby not coming back next season? Because this feels like a definitive goodbye.
Except, no, she is totally coming back this season.
And then I realized, oh, wait, no, this is modern Doctor Who. She didn't have to have her memory wiped or killed or removed from existence or any infinite way she cannot just meet the Doctor again for whatever reason happened to her.
The one I will also say I do like that her mom is a plus-sized woman and no one comments on it.
Yeah, she's a bigger lady, but they don't make any comments about it. They don't bring it up.
No.
And
she just is.
And again, and I'm just like, okay, the mom is fine. Like, it's the idea that a mystery being powerful enough to create a reality continues this weird, like, fantasy mythology thing. Because it feels like a magic thing. Like, knowing a true name gives you great power. A mystery that is big enough is powerful, kind of thing.
Yeah, I still call bullshit. I do also want to say somewhere J.J. Abrams is watching this and going, fuck, why didn't I think of that?
For which part?
The mystery itself is what was causing the strangeness.
I'm surprised it wasn't actually a box. Although technically, the reveal that the TARDIS was the thing behind it made it the mystery box.
All right, I think it's time we start bringing this in for a landing.
Yeah.
There were good points. I'm hoping the next season is better. I think Ncuti Gatwa does a good job. But yeah, on the whole, the writing's just not good.
Yeah, this was a rough season, and I think it being only 8 episodes also hurt it.
I feel like Davies needs more writers. All the best episodes of his era were written by other people.
And we talked about this before when we came into the specials. I'm like, Davies can be a great writer. I always talk about Midnight as like one of his best episodes that he wrote.
Yeah.
But yeah, I liked Boom. I liked Rogue. The ending of Dot and Bubble is great.
Yeah.
Finale has moments, but it is such. And I've told you off camera, I've gotten so much enjoyment about this Sutek reveal. Just like Sutek at different points. It's just like, oh boy. But no, this season just didn't work for me.
I will say, since this Sutek is more dog-like, I wonder if he kept planning his revenge but then getting distracted by a squirrel. Alright, anyway, I didn't like this, but maybe you did. If so, let us know in the comments. If you liked this, like, share, subscribe, follow us on wherever you follow your podcasts. All of that good stuff. If I ever finish the first part, hopefully you're listening to that. Hopefully you're listening to this. Hopefully I don't fall down a well and I can't finish all of these episodes that I have recorded and want to edit because I just want to talk about Doctor Who with my friends. Why can't I just talk about Doctor Who with my friends? Anyway, any parting thoughts you want to leave on, Sam?
We're wrapping up. I was just going to say, hopefully you don't get stuck on a Time Lord spaceship for 1,000 years.
Yep. Have a good night.